Bitcoin just broke an important support. The Bitcoin miners are absolutely tanking today. Let's look at what's going on. We have some positive and some negative news. For one, the S&P 500 fell for its 4th day in a row after weak consumer confidence. And of course, we have Nvidia reporting earnings tomorrow. Bitcoin, as many of you know, dropped under $90,000, which has been a range it's been in from $90,000 to $108,000 for the last 3 months. Well, it broke under that range now. Also, banks sold off a bit on rising recession concerns. We also had some cautious forward guidance from Walmart. Consumers are feeling the hurt. And as said by Ross Mayfield, all this comes together to call into question the underpinning of what has been the strength of the US economy. That is the consumer and the job market. And it has been weakening. There are also some fears about the tariffs. The 30-day delay on the tariffs are set to expire next week. But as for consumer confidence, this is the 3rd consecutive month-on-month decline, bringing it to the bottom of the range that has prevailed since 2022. And out of 5 components, only consumers' assessment of present business conditions improved slightly. Current labor market conditions weakened. Consumers became pessimistic about future business conditions, less optimistic about future income, and future employment prospects worsened, reached a 10-month high. Also, the Philadelphia Fed non-manufacturing survey fell to its lowest reading since April of 2023. This gauge measures the difference between companies reporting expansion or contraction. And this is a negative number, negative 12.9 from 2.2. They are contracting. There is a lot of news going on, so make sure you check this. I'll leave it down below. We have some interesting moves coming from the SEC lately. First off, for some context, the suit against Robinhood and Coinbase were dropped. The SEC has sent a letter saying that the commission has concluded its investigation, has no plans to follow up with enforcement action. Now, the SEC is also very interested in staking, apparently. And Eleanor Terrett, a news journalist from Fox Business, pointed out the SEC's new stance towards staking in a February 20 post. The agency claimed that they're very interested in staking. They even requested a memo that details different types of staking and different benefits. The SEC's recent statement about staking is a notable pivot for the agency. Therefore, we may see the SEC reconsider its lawsuit to consensus. We also have something else really interesting going on regarding the SEC. Robinhood, Coinbase, OpenSea, Michael Saylor meet with the SEC's crypto task force. All these developments are happening while Bitcoin's selling off, while the market is fearful, while the market's selling off the Bitcoin miners that have recently started to post profitability for the first time since the halving. Robinhood's meeting focused on amending and improving US regulatory structures in crypto. And as said by Dan Gallagher, Robinhood's chief legal, compliance, and corporate affairs officer, the commission, meaning the SEC, has the authority and has had since 1996 the authority to establish at least a basic provisional regulatory regime for digital assets, and adding that the SEC could address rulemaking related to registration requirements, anti-fraud protections, and custody. Now, in Saylor's meeting, he talked with the SEC about development of an industry taxonomy, the establishment of a regulatory framework, citing that the US can lead the global digital economy. A capital market renaissance fueled by digital assets will unlock trillions in wealth, empower millions of business, and solidify the US dollar as the foundation of the 21st century digital financial system. There was a separate meeting in which the NASDAQ, funny enough, echoed calls for regulatory clarity, advocating for a framework that should be firmly rooted in existing federal security laws. Now, what's going on with Bitcoin? Bitcoin's selling off. Bitcoin broke its important support. Bitcoin is now at levels on the RSI that we haven't seen since 2024, mid-2024. And let me show you the buying opportunities that is buying on the oversold on the daily. Bitcoin in about 2 years has only gone oversold on the RSI on the daily 4 times. And this is one of the 4. You guys might remember the Mt. Gox fear when Bitcoin dropped all the way to 49K. People were ready to throw in the towel. People were ready to give up. Well, that was a time that we reached oversold. And in hindsight, that was a fantastic buying opportunity. Another time we reached oversold was a little bit before the Mt. Gox max fear. And again, we were oversold back in late 2023. Bitcoin doesn't hit oversold much, but every time in hindsight, it has been a buying opportunity. If Bitcoin breaks this important level, which is a level we tried to establish before we broke up into the 90s. If Bitcoin breaks from this, I think there's a great chance we test the 200 MA, which we haven't really touched since back in 2024, late 2024. Let me show you last cycle and what has happened in the past. Maybe the market's trying to play out kind of a double top like last cycle, where we peak, sell off, and then peak again later in the year. But during this time, we did break the 200 MA. We did break the 50 MA. Traded under it for quite a long time until we finally broke above it. After it stopped becoming a resistance, we broke above it. We did get a death cross in that cycle as well. We do have the 50 MA now curling down a bit because of all this drawdown. Our last golden cross was October of 2024, and I'll make a prediction that that will be still our last golden cross this cycle. But what do you guys think? Do you think the 50 and the 200 MA will cross again, a death cross for Bitcoin. We would need Bitcoin to break under the 200 MA and on the short term continue selling off so the 50 MA can break all the way down to 82,000, which is where the 200 MA is, which is an all-time high for it. Now, just because there's a lot of fear out there doesn't mean the cycle's over. We've seen this throughout many cycles before. And believe it or not, a 25% drawdown from Bitcoin from highs is nothing. Bitcoin has done this many times in the past from all-time highs. And let me show you earlier in the cycle, we dropped almost 30% from our established all-time high of about 74,000. All the way down to 49K. For us to do the same as we did earlier in the cycle during all the Mt. Gox fear, we'd have to drop a little bit under our 200 MA, right around the high 70s. Look at Bitcoin's RSI, and you tell me when were the best times to buy, when were the best times to trim. Every time over longer than last 2 years, Bitcoin has been a fantastic buying opportunity when there's fear, when it's oversold, when no one wants to buy it, when people think the top is in, when people think the cycle's over, when people think somehow that Bitcoin is never going to come back. You buy during these fearful times. Some people avoid buying at lows, avoid buying during 2022, for example, avoid buying while the Bitcoin miners, they were extremely undervalued. In the end, I see Bitcoin recovering. And one thing to consider with the Bitcoin miners is even here at this price, they're still doing better than they were in Q4, which was a profitable quarter for most of them. But what say you guys? Do you think Bitcoin's going to keep selling off? Keep going lower and lower and lower? Are you going to avoid buying it while MicroStrategy buys, while the SEC drops lawsuits, while states are considering Bitcoin reserves? In the end, Bitcoin is not going away, and the best Bitcoin miners are here to stay. While some people are feeling bad about the Bitcoin miners, bad about Bitcoin, this is how you get the most multiples. You don't chase them at the tops hoping for doubles, triples, quadruples. You chase them at the lows. That's how you get more multiples. You buy Bitcoin as low as you can. That's the whole goal. You buy these as cheap as possible. You want them as cheap as you can get them. Otherwise, the gains are going to be diminished. Why pile into CleanSpark in the 20s? Why pile into Mara, much higher in price? Why pile into Iron when it's $15 and $20? Why pile into Bitcoin when it's at an all-time high? When you rather could buy the fear, when you could buy it at a 30% discount from all-time high. When you can take your time, take your sweet time and accumulate during the bear market while no one wants Bitcoin. In my opinion, follow the cycle, you'll do all right. I personally still don't think the top is in. And Bitcoin has corrections like this, and it has had corrections like this in the past. Even worse, Bitcoin has had corrections like this in the past. And what happened after this? After this 30% drop, we went on to break new all-time highs. And for those of you that do think the top is in, where do you think Bitcoin will bottom out at? That's one thing to think about. Where is the next crypto winter bottom? But how are you guys doing on this super red day? Are you taking advantage? Are you throwing in the towel? Are you just ignoring your account for now? In the end, I do believe Bitcoin will do what it has done every cycle. And after we get through this little worry, this little fear, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners will be roaring back. But do you agree? Do you disagree? Is the top in? Is Bitcoin over? Are the Bitcoin miners done? Always like to hear your thoughts down below. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.